Hey guys, welcome to another Friday Fireside Chat. Thanks for being here for another Friday of Reparenting Daily. On this Friday Fireside Chat, as we are in September, the month of emotional intelligence, and crossing into week 2, developing emotional regulation, coming off of the first week, understanding emotional intelligence, what I'm looking at is emotional control and balance. I have so much to say, and on these Friday Fireside Chats, I'm not scripting this, I'm just winging it. I'm saying these are kind of my open discussion episodes. That's why I call it tongue-tied, a Friday Fireside Chat, because I really want to make this like a more informal way for me to start expressing myself and being connected. Speaking of which, that's another thing that I'll come back to, but the idea of this Fireside Chat is, just to be open and free and to tell you about where I am in my own experience and how that relates to Reparenting Daily. Because with the daily podcast, Reparenting Daily, I want to keep it structured. I want to keep it balanced. So I don't want to make something that's like so emotionally dynamic. I want to make something that's really solid, that's, people are able to use to, establish their reparenting routine. And so I've set this a tone that I want to have there. And here I want to be a bit more expressive. And again, what I was going to say before I cut off myself is that I feel like I honestly have lost my entire freaking personality because I've been so disconnected and so unpracticed in being myself. And so, I was criticizing myself, now we're on episode, 512 or whatever of Reparenting Daily. And so I'm feeling like, at first I was criticizing myself because all of these other podcasts, the people are so expressive and dynamic and emotional and energy is flowing. And, so I started criticizing myself. But, first of all, I've done something that no one else has done, in terms of making a reparenting podcast that has continued for 512 or however many episodes I'm on now. Okay. That's the first one. The second part is that, it's so difficult to find a therapist or support of someone who has experienced exactly what you have to be able to support you in that journey, which is, again, why I created this entire Reparenting Daily program, to be able to address that gap. And then lastly, it's like being too concerned with what other people think of me, Like, I feel like I've been so obsessed with how other people are receiving me that I'm not actually just being myself. And in the fact or in the process of being so overly concerned about what other people think about me, I've kind of lost myself in that process. I've lost my emotion. Like, I have been through some rough things, you guys, in this past 20 years or so, 15 years, not 20 years, I'd say. And it's a lot. It's difficult to have dealt with all this on my own the past almost 20 years now, it's about 19 years and some. So that would take me to when I'm 16, And so when I think back to myself at 16, I'm thinking, wow, I really did not have the support that I needed. I really was not learning the skills that I needed to make friends. I had a little bit of a weird experience because I was working at my uncle's ice cream store, right? So those people didn't necessarily want to be friends with me because my uncle is the owner. And so it made it kind of weird because they were all getting along with each other and then I was kind of apart. And it's kind of like, oh, okay, maybe because like I'm the uncle is my owner, so they don't want to, And so I was just feeling like so, and there was never anyone to talk about all of these things all of my life, And so something that I've learned is that, I'm learning, I should say, not that I've learned, is how to come back to myself and learn how to connect from that place and to stop judging myself. And, today I wanted to take some time to talk about, this theme or this concept of emotional control and balance, I was asking a new therapist, does safety, rely on other people, or do you have to have safety within in order to have safety externally, or do you need to have external safety before you have internal safety? Because I feel like normal developmental processes, you have safety received from your parents or initial caregivers, that first level of co-regulation that allows you to internalize that safety, and then you are able to connect with people from a place of safety, and then it goes forward. But if you never had that initial safety shared from your caregivers, and you are then responsible for developing that safety internally first, because you cannot expect it to come internal. So, one of the things with trauma survivors is that I realized that many of the ideas and concepts of the world and living that we have are very naive. So you think that, your safety will come from outside, as it should have come but you didn't receive that, so now you have to go the opposite way. And the same is, you are maybe thinking that people are kinder than they are, and they're not, because of your over expectation, or that's how you fall into people pleasing, because if you just treat people nice, they will treat you nice. And this is all coming from lack of boundaries, lack of individualization, and not being able to be your own person and treated as your own person by your parents, right? And so now the trick is, okay, in this heavy process, how do you then develop and maintain your own emotional balance, right? And so it's not something that's straightforward or even easy. It takes a lot of time to develop that, which is why so many people take so long to develop this emotional balance, especially if you have not grown up with all those repeated experiences of practice, trial and error, and being coached and mentored through basically being parented. And so as we come back to the theme of emotional control and balance, despite that we're coming from this reparenting background, we have so much to catch up on, and trying to do that simultaneously with so much going on in the world, I can imagine that you're overwhelmed. And in that time, I would just like to remind you to take a step back, to take a deep breath, remind yourself of where you are, remind yourself of who you are. It really takes some distance from those from that initial programming that you received and the recurring thoughts that come from that. You must really distance yourself and become separate in order to be able to proceed to the next level. You know what I'm saying? And so you will not be able to balance your emotions until you can actually see and admit what's going on. And so this has made me feel a bit, it's been a difficult past few weeks, you guys. The past months I burned my eyes, had the stomach infection, I'm still trying to go strong with this project because I really believe in it, but it's really been a difficult month, or past 3-4 months even, I'd say now. And so, I would just like to say, in terms of emotional control and balance, don't get swept away in your old story. That's the most important. Reframing, understanding what you actually experienced, and realizing that you have the control to shape that reality. You are not at the mercy. And so, with that being said, thanks for being here, and take care of yourself, and please do be well, and have an excellent Friday and a wonderful weekend. Again, this is about coming back to yourself, maintaining your center, which allows you to maintain that emotional balance with which you can operate effectively in the world. So no matter what you've been through, sorry about that noise, no matter what you've experienced, remember that you have the power to return to yourself. Have a great weekend, guys, and take care.